This is Doug DeMuro, and today I'm going to talk to you about the worst things that have ever happened while I was filming my videos. Looking back through 10 years of filming videos, you can imagine there's been some difficulty, and people are always asking me, do you get pulled over? You ever damaged a car? What's the worst that's happened when you're filming? And so today, I'm going to tell you. Today's video is sponsored by Cars and Bids, which is my online car auction website for modern enthusiast cars. So far, Cars and Bids has hosted more than 20,000 car auctions of special, cool, and interesting cars like this, and this, and this, and this. So, if you're looking to buy or sell an enthusiast car, do it on Cars and Bids. Okay, so the worst things that have ever happened to me while I was filming videos. I went back through like years of my old videos and like tried to jog my mind. Did something happen? What happened? Et cetera, et cetera. And I came up with a list of what's ultimately the three worst things that have ever happened to me when I was filming videos. And I'll just start off by answering the big question. Nothing terrible. I've never damaged a car. I have never crashed a car that I was filming. And I have never been like pulled over or cited while I was filming a video, ever. Occasionally police officers will come, like I film in church parking lots, and they'll come be like, hey, what's that car or whatever. But I've never had any of those types of things happen. But there have still been some incidents that were, let's just say, not particularly good or desirable that have happened while I was filming. And so we start with what I'm going to call the third worst thing that has ever happened to me, and that would be the Ferrari Enzo incident. Okay, March 20 of 2018, I released a video entitled, "Here's a Tour of a $3 million Ferrari Enzo." I filmed this video in Australia. I flew from, at the time I was living on the east coast of the United States, that's here, and I flew all the way to Melbourne, Australia, that's here. The absolute poles of humanity. And I went to Australia to review the Enzo, and I was also going to film a couple of other cars. One of them was a Bugatti EB110, one of them was a Ferrari 288 GTO, I don't remember, there was a fourth, I don't remember what it was. So, fly all the way to Melbourne, Australia to film these videos. I had coordinated everything in advance with the dealership who had set me up with these cars. I'd worked it all, like we had agreed on how it was going to go, exactly the time, like Enzo's going to be first, then the EB110, then the 288 GTO. I mean, like we had calculated everything because I don't travel unless like I have gotten everything agreed on, times, dates, like exactly how the shoot's going to go. And I was very clear with this dealership that I would need to drive the cars for a review. And they, of course, yes, obviously, it's no problem gonna happen. So I'm flying all the way to Australia in order to film a video with this Enzo. And got there, and I was informed that indeed I could not drive the Enzo. And I was informed that some of the other cars weren't available at all. In fact, I consider it one of my all-time classic moments. The person who was like dealing with me at the dealership said, no, you can't drive the EB110, there's no oil in it. And I'm like, what does that even mean? You drained the oil out of this car and then just left it? Like, obviously that doesn't make any sense. I'm not an idiot, but I was like, okay. Like, it was clear they were like making excuses and not sure, and they weren't sure about insurance requirements. It was like, why didn't you figure all this stuff out when I told you that I would be coming in the first place? So that was tremendously annoying, and that was especially difficult because I had gone such a long way. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind with this video. Number one, they did allow me to review the Enzo. I just couldn't drive it. Which I still find to be so insane when anybody has this condition for me. I own a Carrera GT and a Countach. I've driven Chirons and Veyrons and Koenigseggs, cars worth millions and millions of dollars. And anybody who's like, oh, you can't drive it, it's like, this isn't to me like the pinnacle that you think it is. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to like swerve around and like drift an Enzo. I just want to get a video done so people can watch it. And I promise I'll only drive it for a little bit. Like, people, it's just it's very annoying to me. And also, I have production insurance that covers me in these cars. But anyway, they let me film a video with the Enzo. They just didn't let me drive the Enzo. And honestly, I look at the video now, 5.2 million views. It's still pretty good. And it's important to keep keep in mind, a lot of people watch my videos just for the quirks and features, and the driving part is important to a car review video, but to people who just want to like see all the buttons and stuff, no one covers it closer, especially for unusual cars like this, and so I still feel like I got a pretty good review tour video of that Enzo. Also worth pointing out that that dealership in Australia did also let me do a video with a Maybach S-Class that was brand new at the time, and that was also a pretty popular video. In fact, that video is at 5.3 million views. It actually somehow got more views than the Enzo video. And maybe because I drove it. But regardless, those two videos were certainly enough for me to justify the trip to Australia. I also should point out, I wasn't just going to Australia. I was actually going on my honeymoon to New Zealand. And so I was already going to be in that part of the world. And so I tacked on the Australia part before the honeymoon. So I went out like a week before my wife, or a few days before, and I was going to film all these cars. In the end, what actually happened was I filmed the Enzo, and then I filmed the other car, and I just left. I was like, you guys aren't serious, obviously, about having me here, so I'm just out. And I went to New Zealand a couple of days early. But that was probably the number 3 worst thing that has happened. The number 2 worst thing that has ever happened to me while I was filming, I will never forget this day. It is the summer of 21. And I am filming the new S-Class, which has just come out. This is a huge deal, a new S-Class on a channel like mine that does quirks and features. A brand new luxury car is a big deal. So I go to film the new S-Class at Fletcher Jones Motors, Mercedes-Benz in Newport Beach. I go up to film, and I realize when I set up my camera that I have forgotten the small piece that connects the camera to the tripod. Now, my setup is really low tech. I only have about 5 or 6 moving parts. There's like the microphones, the camera, the tripod, the memory card. That's basically it. My phone, my cell phone, the phone mount, that's like it. There's only like 7 or 8 things I need to remember. But in this particular case, for whatever reason, the little mount that mounts the camera to the tripod wasn't with me. And so occasionally I'll get to a shoot and forget something. It's not that big of a deal. I drove to Best Buy and I bought a new tripod, which is, you know, it's $50 or something. But like I'm filming this video, it's going to make money. It's worth, like, I got to do it. Like I have a certain amount of time, I can do it. So $50, drive back, get to the parking lot to film the video, unbox the tripod, and discover that this particular tripod had been purchased and then returned, and the person who bought and returned it stole the little clip on the top of the tripod that connects it to the camera. So I have now $50 wasted on a new tripod, and the little clip thing is still missing. Like the person returned it and didn't tell Best Buy that they had taken that piece, and Best Buy just restocked it, and I didn't have it. So at this point, I'm like, okay, this is obviously an issue. I need to get this thing filmed. I've wasted probably 30, 40 minutes already trying to figure this out. Then I go to I look on Google and I'm like, I gotta find that was the last tripod at Best Buy. I gotta find a different place. I find a camera store nearby. And I'm like, all right, we'll go to the camera store. So I drive to the camera store. I go around there, find another tripod. I buy that tripod, another 50 or 75 bucks wasted, go back to the filming location. At this point, it's been over an hour. I was supposed to start shooting an hour ago. I still haven't started shooting. I finally get this tripod. Okay, this one has the little thing. It's still new in the box, all good. Set it up for my camera, go to film the intros, and my camera doesn't work. This is one of the drawbacks of not bringing a lot of backup equipment. I try to pack really light, travel really light with my setup. 99% of the time, it's not a problem at all. But there are occasional things where things happen and it is a problem. And eventually a camera breaks. And if it breaks on set, you got an issue. And it just so happened that it broke for me that day. After I had already had one tripod mishap, a second tripod mishap, and then a third tripod mishap. So guess what I do? The camera's not working, and by the way, it's the middle of July, filming in this hot parking lot in Southern California, incredibly hot, and I'm sitting there messing with the camera, trying to get it to work, doesn't work. I drive back to the camera store, and then I have to spend like $1,000 on a new camera that was sort of similar to the one that I had in order to shoot this video. Come back to filming the car, finally set up the new camera on the second new tripod I had bought that day, and the rest of the video worked actually okay. But I probably lost an hour and a half or 2 hours before shooting this video buying stupid crap because none of it worked properly. And again, this could be avoided if I brought seconds of my gear with me. I just have always been kind of a pack light person, and generally it works out, but there are times when it doesn't, and in this case, it really didn't. But by far the worst thing that has ever happened while filming, say in this same vein of equipment problems, was when I filmed the new Subaru WRX. That video went up in December of 21. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that situation. In order to film the new WRX, they were having the WRX press launch in Napa in Northern California. But it was in the middle of winter, and in that area in California in winter, it can get pretty wet and rainy. So I flew up there. Now, I don't often go on press launches. I prefer to just wait till the car can come to me. I have a family. There's a lot of production that's done here. I don't necessarily want to be out of the office for 3 days sometimes to do these videos. But in that particular press launch, Subaru had said, hey, look, you can take the car for like the morning and just return it to us because we need it in the afternoon. And you can do the video. And I can just fly in, film the video, fly out. It's fine. So I fly in, and it's pouring rain. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to be an easy situation in which to shoot a car video. And I start shooting the video, and about a third of the way through the video, rain has been pouring onto my camera. And I have actually filmed a lot of videos in rain before, and my camera was always like really sturdy and robust, never had any problems. But it was raining so much that day, and it was so challenging that the camera broke. The camera failed. That was clearly the way things were going to go because there were like some intermittent failures before that. And so what happened was I had started filming a video on the sprawling vineyard property of this hotel where Subaru had people. And I realized it was just too rainy, and I went to, I don't know if this made the video, I don't remember, but I went to a self-serve car wash. I had to drive like 15 minutes to go to a self-serve car wash just to be inside of like an enclosure to try to film. But even then, too much water had already gotten into the camera, and it failed. That wasn't a good situation for a lot of reasons, but the number one reason it wasn't a good situation is because this particular event was in a tremendously rural area, and there was no replacement camera situation available to me. And so I ended up having to drive 30 minutes or 40 minutes one way to go to a camera store in rural Northern California in the new WRX, which had not yet been released. And I'm driving around, I told them I'd have the car back by whatever time, and instead I'm driving to a camera store in Santa Rosa, and it's like 40 minutes, and it's driving rain this whole time, and there's it's heavy traffic for some reason, and I'm just like, I'm supposed to be filming a car review, and instead I'm sitting in heavy traffic in the pouring rain driving to a camera store in a town many, many, many miles away. And this is terrible. So I show up at the camera store. I'm like soaking wet. The camera people take pity on me. They find me a camera that we can do the thing with. It's totally different from the camera that I'm used to using. I don't know what the hell to do. I have no idea. And I think to this day, if you watch the video, you can see that some portions of it were clearly shot with some sort of different camera situation that like the picture doesn't look the same at all, but that was just what I had. And believe it or not, I get the footage. I actually get it done. Like that camera also gets wet. I didn't really have another choice. By that time, I think I also went and bought like plastic bags to put over the camera, which would have been smart to begin with. But in the end, that camera does get it done and get the shot. Of course, at this point, I had shot the rest of that video in this town where the camera store was. And so then I had to drive an hour and a half or 45 minutes back to the location in order to return the car, obviously, which was late. So that whole day was like an incredible camera destruction situation. And by the way, when you're shooting these videos, I should point this out because these things don't sound so bad. When you're shooting these videos, you're really trying to maximize for time, especially when you're traveling somewhere, but also you've got a shot list, you've got what you're trying to say. You are not trying to focus on issues with your equipment. Like you're thinking in your mind, like this is what I'm gonna say, this is how I'm gonna talk, this is what I have to say. And when you get a line perfect and then you go back and check it on the camera and it didn't get the sound because water leaked into the microphone, like that is really demoralizing and difficult. And I'll never forget how like hard I found that day with the new WRX. But eventually I got it done, and actually, believe it or not, the camera dried out that night. And I actually think that I think that the camera that I use to this day is still the same one as the one that got wet in that Subaru launch all those years ago, or at least some slight variation of it. I don't think it's all that different, but that was a really, really, really tough day. I was actually supposed to shoot a second car that day, and I had to cancel on the second car because the weather situation was just such a complete disaster. The other important thing was that WRX was brand new, and I always try to post my best videos in December, in DOUGSCORE, and the WRX was a hot new car, and so I really wanted to get the video live in December. I couldn't just wait for them to send it to me. That's one of the reasons I went up there. there. And so it was really important to get that video done. I'm glad I did. It's almost at 2 million views. It worked out well, but it was a difficult time. Now, I should mention also, it's not just equipment and things that happen. I've been doing videos, basically 2 car review videos every single week for 10 years. And as you can imagine, there are ups and downs in life in that time. And so sometimes if I want to stay consistent, I'm filming a video after a hard day or a bad thing has happened. I still remember my wife and I had tried to get pregnant for a long time, and we had a miscarriage like just before I filmed a video about the Genesis G80. And it was like a very difficult time. It was a very difficult situation, but the press car was there. I only had it for a few days. I had to film it that day. I watched that video back and I can't tell. I do a pretty good job, I think, of hiding that. We eventually had our son and then our other son, and everything's great, but there was a really tough period there. But that's what happens. And I think people don't really understand that at the level of content that some of these people are making content, myself, other YouTubers, people who are on daily television shows, like, you go out there every single day, every single night, regardless of your personal circumstances, regardless of if your mom just died or if you're sick, whatever, you have to get the footage. And some days you'll see me filming a video and that day was a hard one for whatever reason. So those kind of things happen in life when you're making content at this level, but at this level of frequency. By the way, one other thing people often ask me is, have I ever broken down when I was filming a video? It has happened to me only one time, and it was fairly recently, 2 years ago, an E28 M5 that I was reviewing. That car broke down on the side of the road while I was reviewing it. Thankfully, I had just finished, but I was driving it back home to the car owner's home, broke down, and the car failed. I couldn't get it started again. It was a disaster. Fortunately, I was only like a mile or two from his house maybe, and he was an enthusiast of these cars. And so whatever the thing that failed was, he showed up, came to my rescue right away, and had the part to fix the car, and then it started right up again, and I drove it home. But that's the only time that's happened. It's surprised, because I've reviewed a lot of older cars, a lot of kind of sketchy cars. None of them have ever broken down on me except for that, and that problem was within 45 minutes or an hour, everything was done and it was all good. But that's that. Not that many bad things have ever happened. Equipment stuff happens. When you film this number of content, this amount of videos, equipment stuff's gonna happen. But nothing crazy, nothing terrible has ever happened while I was filming, which I consider obviously to be a great thing and frankly lucky considering just how many videos I've made. But those are the worst things that have happened.